I'm a nurse that worked at a psychiatric hospital for 5 years. That place was completely haunted. Police would call us in the middle of the night, saying some little girl, who identified herself as Santana, was calling 911 from a certain extension in the hospital. That extension? The arts and crafts room. Nobody goes there at night. Nobody, I assure you. Yet, there's obviously something there. And it calls 911 a lot. Lots of other stories from that place, but that's the craziest, creepiest one. When I was a teenager, 20 plus years ago, my friends and I trespassed on a condemned insane asylum called Eloise in southeastern Michigan. The worst thing wasn't that it was at night with crappy flashlights, the dirty patient records scattered on the floor, the broken furniture, the torn up walls, the leaking water pipes, or the huge fungal bloom from the leaking water. The worst part was finding a tunnel and following it to a place inside where power was still on. There was a light, an ominous-looking double doors, and an active security camera. It was like, why is this here? What's going on? Later on, I found out the asylum and a nearby hospital were connected. However, the Wikipedia page says it closed in 1984, but we were there several years after that. I think I saved one of the patient records somewhere. I was the night watchman at an abandoned mental hospital turned state park for a summer in college. The only creepy thing that happened was one night I was with one of the state park police, and we saw flashlights in one of the buildings. Kids constantly broke in, and other people broke in to gut the old buildings of any copper they could find. So, as I was saying one night, we saw flashlights moving around, so we went in. The officer pulled her gun and flashlight, and in we went. We could hear footsteps on the floor above us, and we slowly and quietly went upstairs. We checked every room and found nothing. Then we heard footsteps above us again. This happened for a few floors, until we were on the top floor below the roof. We heard footsteps up on the roof, so we went up there. Still nothing. We never found anyone, or any indication that anyone had been there. It was friggin' creepy. There's this abandoned mental hospital in my town called Prudhoe Hospital, which is sort of the scary place kids go to show bravado. It's surrounded by woods, so obviously you hear lots about it. You hear lots of stories from people after it was abandoned, but the spookiest things come from when it was still in service. My mom worked as an auxiliary nurse there for years, and she said at night the crippled kids who couldn't move due to severe diseases and birth defects would somehow get out of their cribs and into the middle of the floor on the wards. Whatever was doing this would also go around and remove blankets from all the patients, and again pile them in the center of the room. Eventually security was hired, believing it was someone getting in the hospital at night, and doing all these things just to scare people, or just to be trouble. However, even with security, they never found out who was doing these things at night. A few years ago, my cousin and his friends were walking in the woods outside of Frederick and found an old abandoned insane asylum. It was all boarded up, grown over, dark, dusty. It looked like it was out of a movie. Obviously, my cousin and his friends broke in to look around. The first room they went into was full of file cabinets holding records of all the patients that used to be there, and they found a bunch of really creepy pictures. Another room was nothing but concrete and drains on the floor. The walls had chains attached to them, and in the center of the room was a table that had what looked like torture tools and beating sticks. Other than that, they didn't really see anything, but they claimed to have heard talking, footsteps, and demented giggling. I worked night shift as a CNA in a hospital. I had a patient last year. He was in his 50s, totally with it. I had him for a week or two, and never showed any signs of confusion at night or otherwise. He liked to keep his door open at all times, and he was in a room close to the nurse's station, so he saw myself and plenty other staff walk by throughout the night. One night, around 2:30 in the morning, he sees me walking by and calls me into his room. He asks, "Is that your son or something?" "Who?" I asked. "That little boy that's been following you all night," he said. I proceeded to ask what he looked like, because I could not see him. He said he looked to be about 7 years old, with short, dark hair and a baseball cap. Both of us were freaked out about the situation, and he requested to keep his lights on after that. I'm getting chills thinking about that now. I love anything that will get my heart pumping and the adrenaline flowing, from extreme sports to urban exploration. I've almost done it all. But there was one time when I really considered my beliefs as an atheist. I reckon that ghosts and spirits and all that cannot possibly exist, due to the lack of physical evidence. But one night really got my mind going. It was about 16 years ago, when I lived in Topeka, Kansas. Now, some of you will know what I'm talking about already, but for those of you who don't, keep reading. I was a keen urban explorer. There was just something thrilling about breaking into abandoned buildings and exploring them. I had always known about the Topeka State Hospital due to the numerous haunted stories around it, but I had never really thought about exploring it. My friend, Reese, was also an avid urban explorer, and one night he suggested to me that we go check it out at night. Not believing in ghosts or scary stories as such, I instantly agreed to go. We got our bags, ready with torches, phones, and a snack or two, and waited for sunset. On arriving, it was already pitch black. There were no lights, as the place had been closed since 1990, so we flipped on our torches and crunched our way up the gravel to the front entrance. It was locked, as we expected, so we made our way around the red bricked exterior, looking for a way in. About halfway around, we came across a boarded up window. I offered Reese a parting glance, and a slight nod of his head indicated we were thinking along the same idea. I braced my shoulder and bashed into the window. The sound echoed around the empty halls and the surrounding forest for what seemed ages. A second bash proved successful as the wood splintered and fell to the ground in a large bang. Reese whispered in my ear, "Honestly, if nobody comes after us after that, then we're safe." I climbed in through the small gap, before lending a hand to Reese to do the same. Once we were inside, we flipped on our torches and were met with a view of peeling wallpaper and a heavy, musty smell. We crunched our way through the first room, just enjoying the rush of adrenaline as we tiptoed our way through the halls, before we heard footsteps running in the room above us. Immediately, my heart skipped a beat, and I glanced at Reese, who put up his finger to his lips. and indicated that we should turn our torches off. In the pitch black, I must admit, I started getting scared. But I carried on, and we made our way up to the second floor to see who was with us in the house. After 3 minutes of looking, we turned up empty, and were about to leave when we heard more footsteps running. And this time, we were sure that we weren't just hearing things, as a light rain of dust fell from the room. We immediately thought we were being pranked, so we ran up to the third floor and hoped to catch this person. But, once again, it turned up empty. We had had enough and just started going down when we heard a door creak from above. This was it, our chance. We sprinted up, barged through the door. We ended up on the roof of the asylum, empty. Just then, we heard a door being slammed from the floor beneath us, and some guttural, whispering noise. I can't tell you how fast we got out of there, but I can tell you that we probably ran faster than the time we got chased by the police. To this day, I still have no idea what was running around with us in that asylum. I'd like to believe it was some bad prank, but I have this nagging feeling that it wasn't. Ghosts and spirits don't exist, do they? A friend of mine was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis and was so upset over it that she made a suicide attempt. She landed in the mental health wing of the big hospital, and I went to visit her one evening. Had a heck of a time finding the right place, and felt like I had walked through miles of increasingly decrepit hospital before I found the right wing. Went through a set of double doors, and found myself staring down a dimly lit hallway with an incredibly creepy, weathered-looking old lady in a housecoat standing right in the middle of it. I walked down the hallway nervously, not taking my eyes off the old woman. She didn't take her eyes off of me either. I flinched as I walked by her, but she didn't move. 10 feet beyond her was the doorway to the waiting room of the ward I was looking for. I breathed a sigh of relief as I reached the doors, then glanced over my shoulder to see if the woman had moved. She was right behind me, staring into my face. I don't know how she managed to silently cover that 10 feet just as fast as I had moved, but she did. One fall afternoon, a buddy of mine and I decided to visit a massive abandoned mental hospital to take some photos. We're talking 11 wards of 2 floors, in a basement, all connected from ward to ward. In total, it must be 200 to 300 linear yards of winding connecting hallways on each floor. You get in, and you see open cell after cell after cell, peeling paint and graffiti all over the walls. We checked the basement, walked through the majority of the wards, and are now at Ward 8. We got there early in the afternoon, maybe around 2 or 3, because we were too pansy to go at night. Mind you, we've heard there are cult gatherings, and people have been known to stumble across occasional hobo on their visits, so we came equipped with a couple of Kershaws. Praying not to get into some knife fight, but it's better to have one than not, right? So, Ward 8. We're in a connecting hallway with a couple of wired-off windows that can see outside. My buddy says, "Yo, get away from the window." We look outside. There's an ambulance. No lights on, creeping slowly around the building. He must have been going at about 5 miles per hour, so we thought, dang, if there's an ambulance, there must be a cop somewhere. Bad logic, I know, but we're just worried about being busted for trespassing. The ambulance disappears from our line of sight from the windows and must have driven around all the other wards at the same pace, because a minute or so later, we see the ambulance pass right alongside the hallway we were standing in, still creeping. Thankfully, the ambulance drives away, so we think. Okay, that was just a scare. There's no cops around, let's just keep on going. We slowly advance for another 3 or so minutes and come across a huge lobby, probably the cafeteria, and start taking a couple shots of the collapsed ceiling. We walk a bit further into the cafeteria and are by the windows again. We see the ambulance again, creeping, just like last time, along the perimeter of the building. We hide from the windows, hoping that we weren't seen as the cafeteria is full of windows to the exterior. This time, we start to get a little bit more scared. He disappears from our line of view again, and of course, comes around the other side of the building, circling like it did last time, 5 miles per hour, just like last time. This time, however, he doesn't leave the complex. He drives up to Ward 11, the last ward, and parks in a cove with no exit that was right out of our line of sight. We hear the door open and close, and another door open and close. We were able to tell that there was only one person in the ambulance from the first time we sighted it. What was going on? Was this guy here to shoot up? Seemed like a bad place for a trip. Was he here for some sort of drug deal? Or was he back to play with us because he saw us on his last ride around? We stay put, and at this point we're maybe 50 yards from Ward 11, and 100 to 200 yards from the exit we came in from. We know of no other exits except for the ones at each end. Trying to be as quiet as possible, we begin to hear footsteps on the floor above us. Seconds later, the footsteps turn into running towards us. We both instantly go for our knives and begin to book it out of there. The fastest 200-yard dash I will do to this day. We finally reach the exit. We're safe. We're safe. We continue to book it a ways away from the hospital till we're on the path that gets us back to our car. On the way back to the little lot with my buddy's car, we see there's a truck, one of those Ford Ranger types, parked right next to my buddy's car. We get maybe 50 yards away from it when he turns the car on and starts driving down the road towards us. In the car is another middle-aged man, looked real sketchy. He drives past, and that's the last we saw of both of them. I never got a shot of the ambulance as I was too scared to go near the windows, and that my flash would go off, but I did get a shot of the Ranger in the parking lot. What were these guys doing here? An ambulance? I'd love to hear what you guys come up with. We've been playing it over in our heads for quite a while now. Hey everyone, Dismal Hero here. Thanks for checking out the video, and if you like what you saw, make sure to subscribe so you're always up to date with my new videos. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time.